Allow me to tell you a story. It is Christmas Day, 3:30 in the morning. I am half asleep, and I am jarred awake by the sound of my dog peeing on the floor. So I had to, jump out of bed, get him to stop doing that, take him outside, and then try and go back to sleep. And, I didn't get back to sleep. So about 4:30, I gave up trying to get back to sleep, and so I decided I'm gonna go to my giant box of books, because that is a thing that I have, and I'm gonna find a book that I have that just, I haven't read in a while, and that looks stupid. And that is how I found Troublemaker. So, this is Troublemaker by Jillian Brooks. It is part of the Wonder Girls series, and you might read the phrase Wonder Girls and think, ooh, it's going to be something cool and exciting. It's called that because they live in a town called Wonder Lake. It's not like superheroes or anything. Sorry to let you down. Surprisingly, I was not able to find out anything about these books or the author of them online, which seems wild, but it's true, because when you Google Wonder Girls, the first thing that comes up is a K-pop group, which, fair, and then when you do Wonder Girls books, it turns out that there are a lot of books called Wonder Girls or Wonder Girl that are not this book. And then once I did find the correct series, there was nothing about it. I mean, I was able to find out that there are 8 books. This is the third, and there's not really any information about them at all. They seem to have all been published between 2002 and 2003, although quite amusingly on Goodreads some of them are listed as having been published in 1948. And I don't think that's correct. But other than that, I could not find anything about them online. I also couldn't find anything out about the author, because there are a lot of people named Jillian Brooks in the world, apparently. And then once you type Jillian Brooks author, there's actually another person writing under the name of Jillian Brooks, but they do not write books for prepubescent teen girls. They write pirate erotica. So I'm going to assume that that's not the same person. I read this book at 4 in the morning when I was hysterical, and it's not good. It's not bad, but it's not good. It's, if I had to summarize this, I would just say that it's middle school girl drama, the book. And by what I mean by that is that if you're a middle school girl, I'm sure this book would be lovely to you and you could relate to it and everything. But if you are literally anyone else, it's kind of painful to read. However, I will say it is very accurate to the premise of middle school girl drama, the book, because as I was reading it, I had memories. As just a brief summary, all of the characters are the worst, and even the ones that aren't the worst are pretty flat and boring, and honestly, I can't really get much into it without actually getting into it. So let's start let me take you through the journey that is this book's plot. I literally can't even get off the first page without already having things to complain about, because our protagonist's name is Felicia Feel, and Feel might be the worst last name I've ever heard. When I first read the book, I misread it as Foil, and I was like, that's an odd choice, but okay. So we basically have it info dumped to us in an entry into Felicia's diary, basically a brief overview of what happened in the previous 2 books that we didn't read. Basically, so Felicia was this not popular girl, and then she became friends with these 2 popular girls named Arielle and Amanda. And then Tracy, who is a girl that Felicia met at a summer camp, ends up moving to their town, and then apparently the four of them fought a whole bunch and then decided to still be friends anyway, even though, like, friend fights happen, but also it's said at some point that it's only been like a few weeks since they've met each other. So if you've been friends for like 3 weeks and all you've done is fight, maybe you shouldn't be friends, but, like, go off, Felicia. We start off with Felicia and the gang of generic friends hanging out at Felicia's dad's dog shelter. Felicia's parents are divorced. She lives with her dad on weekdays and her mom on weekends. Her dad runs an animal shelter, and her mom owns a bakery. And apparently, the girls have, like, a pet therapy program that they started, and it's never really explained what they do. It's just kind of like, yeah, that's a thing we do on the side. So we start off with Felicia and her dad and her friends driving back to Felicia's house from, like, the town hospital or whatever, and we get to meet our characters. So, brief overview of everyone. Felicia's dad, he's not strict, but he's, like, stern. Like, he has very particular things that he gets, like, upset about, and he will, like, crack down hard on them, but he's not, like, super overbearing, but Felicia still, like, worries that her friends won't like her. Oh, that's another thing. Felicia's only character motivation in this entire book is to keep her friends from hating her. Felicia is, like, a very insecure and scared person, and, like, same, but also, girl, do you need help? To introduce the friends, we have Tracy. The best way I can describe her is that she has horse girl energy. Even though there are no horses in this book, she just has that extreme energy to me. She was originally from South Carolina, although I don't know where Wonder Lake is, so I don't really know what that means, like, culturally or geographically, but she's from South Carolina. Her mom is, like, the school music teacher, and Tracy plays clarinet, which we love clarinet player representation, and I believe Tracy's good at it. Tracy just strikes me as, like, the one who doesn't really know what her, like, because, like, all of these other characters, they have, like, 2 things that are, like, their stereotype, and that's all they do. Tracy, like, doesn't have that, so she almost strikes me as the one who's, like, most like a real person. Felicia's kind of like that, too, but I'd probably say that Tracy is my favorite of these characters, just because she was, of the 4 girls, I mean, because, as we're going to get to in a moment, Felicia's dad, Mr. Feel, is actually the best character, but of the 4 girl protagonists, I would say Tracy is my favorite, just because she feels like an actual human being. Amanda is, like, basically an 11-year-old hippie. She wears, like, flowy skirts and stuff, and she's super into, like, arts and crafts and everything, and that's her character. And then we have Arielle. I hate Arielle so much. She is the worst thing about this book. I hate her. So, like the other girls, Arielle is a walking stereotype. She is the cool, popular girl who always looks flawless, which feels like a weird trope to include since these characters are 11, but, like, go off. And her 2 passions in life are shopping and playing soccer, and those are the only 2 things she does. And basically her introduction is super negative because all of the other girls are, like, playing with the dogs in the shelter or whatever, and then Arielle's like, ugh, dirt, and it's like, you're volunteering at an animal shelter. Did you not think that you were going to run into dirt? And then throughout the book, Arielle just continually agitates, like, all of the conflicts that are happening. She goes out of her way to make them worse. I hate Arielle so much. I mean, every book in this series is from a different perspective, so, like, maybe if I read the Arielle POV book, I would understand her more, but, like, as she is presented in Troublemaker, I hate her. Alright, so they're in the car driving back to the Feels place, and because basically everything that the characters say out loud is exposition, we learn about this woman named Penny. She is Amanda's babysitter, and she is she makes like paper mache sculptures, and basically she taught Amanda everything she knows about art, and she's basically like a big sister figure to Amanda. They pull into the Feels driveway, and Penny is there, and she's basically a, she's like Amanda. She's basically a hippie, and she like Felicia just like takes an instant disliking to her, and it's really weird. She's because she Penny wears like a necklace, and she's like, oh, these crystals make me feel so centered, and it's like, okay, maybe that's a little weird, but like Felicia just like instantly strongly judges her, and like I'm just uncomfortable. Amanda is introducing her friends to Penny, and she's like, this is Felicia, and her dad runs the animal shelter in town, and then Penny is like, oh yeah, Luis told me about his work yesterday, and Felicia's like, whoa, I'm sorry, why are you on first name basis with my dad? This is making me uncomfortable. I am not okay with this, and then that just gives her more reason to dislike Penny. Felicia is just becoming increasingly more uncomfortable because, like, apparently, Luis, Felicia's dad, gave Penny a tour of their house while Felicia wasn't there, and I mean, I kind of get why Felicia would be weirded out by that, but also she's 100% not connecting what's going on here. Like, they're on a first name basis with each other. There's a part where Penny like pats Luis's hand or something. Like, it's very clear that like they're romantically interested in each other. It's clear to anyone who has half a brain, or even anyone who read the back of the book summary, because it literally says it right on there. But Felicia isn't connecting it. That's another thing with Felicia. She is the densest protagonist since Harry Potter. Anyway, Penny's like, oh yeah, Felicia, your dad gave me a tour of your house, and I saw in your room that you have this adorable Eeyore nightlight, and I had one just like it when I was a kid. And she's clearly like to anyone who is intelligent, she's clearly trying to be like, hey, daughter of the person I want to date, I'm going to be nice to you and try to relate to you. But Felicia takes it as Penny deliberately telling an embarrassing story in front of her friends, because Felicia is an insecure, paranoid child who takes everything as a threat to her social status. And so now that basically solidifies Felicia's dislike of Penny, when all Penny really did was be into some weird crystal stuff and try to relate to her future boyfriend's daughter. To make things worse, we find out that Penny was badly bitten by a dog when she was a child, and as a result, she kind of has a phobia of them. And I guess she doesn't know that Luis works with dogs, because a dog jumps out of like the back of their truck, and she's like, what's that dog doing here? They work at an animal shelter, what were you expecting? Now, Felicia, instead of being like, okay, this woman has a admittedly irrational phobia, but that is rooted deeply in something that happened to her as a child, and so it's like a mental illness, and I should be respectful of that. Felicia's a dumb 11-year-old, so of course she doesn't make that, and she kind of like says that Penny's like being silly and overreacting, and this is just more proof that she shouldn't be talking to her dad, because they're not right for each other or whatever. So, you know, we love portrayals of mental illness in this household, and like, it's in character for an ignorant 11-year-old protagonist, but she kind of gets corrected on it at the end, but not really. That's a big crux of my review, that the ending is like really unsatisfying, but like, we'll get there when we get there. Luis takes Penny inside the house so that she can calm down, and then he tells the girls, like, put the animals in their pens or whatever. And while they're there, Amanda's like, so do you guys think Penny's cool? And then Tracy's like, sure. But then Arielle and Felicia go off to the side to have, like, a bitching session about Penny. And I'm just like, I hate Arielle, and I kind of hate Felicia now. Except, like, with Felicia, we get her, like, internal logic as to why she doesn't like Penny. So, like, it's stupid, but I get it. But, like, Arielle literally is just like, I don't like Penny. And it's like, it's weird because we've established that Arielle and Amanda have been friends, like, since they were little kids. They are, like, the two who had, like, a strong pre-existing connection before they became one friend group. And so, like, it just comes across as, like, very vindictive because Arielle's like, ugh, I've always hated Penny. And it's like, what? It seems like a very strong dislike for someone that your best friend likes so much. It's okay if you're not head over heels for her, but it just feels really vindictive to be, like, harboring this, like, deep hatred for Penny for, like, the 5-6 years you've known each other. It doesn't sit well with me. And it's Arielle in general just does not sit well with me. I don't like her. Eventually the girls tried to go and find Louise and Penny, and they have a section of their yard that's just overtaken by weeds. But the thing is, they call it the weed farm. And I was like, so this is gonna be that kind of book. They walk into the weed farm, and they find Luis with his arm around Penny's shoulders, and Felicia is disturbed, and she assumes that, like, Luis and Penny couldn't possibly like each other because they obviously didn't have a single thing in common, and it's like, girl, you just met her 10 minutes ago, you can't assume this. Like, the whole group talks some more, and then Penny drives Amanda and Tracy home, and then Arielle's like, oh, well, my dad's gonna pick me up after his golf practice, and then later she reveals that she was lying, and so then she has to call her dad to get her to pick her up from her golf practice. But basically, Arielle's the worst. That's the moral of this review, guys. Arielle is the worst, and I hate her. Luis is actually the best character because, like, he and Penny are just really cute. Like, on one page, they have, like, Penny says, like, okie dokie, and then, like, later on the page, Luis is like, if Ryan comes to the house, just send him out, okie dokie, and Felicia's like, Dad doesn't normally say that, and I don't know, they're just cute, okay. Arielle goes home, and we meet a new character, Ryan. So, Ryan is this boy they go to school with, and he's, like, a goofball. He's just your middle school goofball boy, basically. And he becomes friends with Felicia and the gang because Tracy really wants a dog, but her older brother is allergic to them. And so then Ryan adopted the dog she wanted, so she became friends with Ryan just so that she could play with his dog. And same. Anyway, Ryan comes up to Felicia and he's like, hey, are the other girls here? I thought you were doing your therapy thing today. And Felicia's like, oh yeah, they were, but they left. And then Ryan's like kind of bummed out about it, and then he's like, oh, I'll go see your dad for my dog training session. And Felicia's like, hold on. And she comes to the conclusion that Ryan has a crush on one of her friends, but instead of assuming that it's Tracy, the obvious answer, because Tracy and Ryan spend a whole bunch of time together goofing around, she assumes that Arielle must have a crush on Ryan for some reason, even though every mention of Ryan so far in this book has involved Arielle complaining about how she doesn't like Ryan. So basically after that, the chapter ends. We cut to the next morning where Felicia and her dad are, like, tending to the animals or whatever. And as they're working, her dad's kind of like, so, Penny was a very interesting person, wasn't she? And Felicia's like, she was interesting. And basically it goes on for a while, and then Felicia's dad is like, would you mind if I started dating Penny? And, like, Felicia doesn't want to outright shut him down because she can tell that he kind of likes her, so she's trying to drop hints like, do you really think, like, a crystal can be, like, centering, or, man, it sounds weird that Penny's afraid of dogs. Like, she's trying to, like, subtly drop it, but either her dad isn't getting the hint or he's deliberately ignoring it. And then Felicia has to go to school, so they kind of end it unresolved. Felicia gets to school, and she meets Tracy at her locker, and she tells Tracy about the whole Penny and her dad thing, and she's like feeling, I guess Felicia's just feeling vindictive that morning because she does like a really shrill, exaggerated impression of Penny. And then right when she's doing that, Amanda and Arielle walk up, and then basically, for understandable reasons, Amanda ends up walking off in a huff, and then Tracy's kind of like, so, am I gonna have to be the one to go after Amanda? Because y'all seem to not care about her feelings, so then Tracy goes after her, and Felicia's like, oh no, our friend group is split up, and also I don't know if this happens in this chapter, but I'm gonna bring it up anyway. She gets mad at Tracy for taking Amanda's side, when that isn't what Tracy was doing. Tracy just didn't want Amanda to be, like, alone crying in the bathroom or something. That particularly brings back memories for me. I have been in many a situation where two of my friends are fighting, and I'm just like, well, maybe you should consider their side. Oh, so you're taking their side? And I'm like, no, please, for the love of God, I just want my friends to be friends again. Anyway, yeah, Tracy leaves. Arielle and Felicia complain about Penny some more, and then, Arielle, Amanda, and Tracy all have the same homeroom, and so Felicia spends, like, the rest of her day just, like, worrying about if her friends are talking about her behind her back, and, like, Felicia is not a stable human being. Cut to lunch that day. Felicia's like, should I sit at, like, our normal table? Because I'm afraid they're, like, gonna be mad at me, but then they, like, wave her over. She goes over there, and Amanda reveals that she herself isn't that psyched about Penny dating Luis either. And she says something like, I just mean Mr. Field isn't exactly the type of man I'd picture Penny with. And then instead of just... Here's the thing, Felicia literally had the exact same thought. She thought, oh, these two people aren't meant to be together. So instead of getting on the same page, Felicia takes this as an insult against her dad. Because nothing in this book can be simple. I just realized that this chapter is, like, really boring and doesn't contribute anything, so we're gonna just go through it real quick. Amanda and Felicia yell at each other even though they should be on the same side. Arielle tries to stir up more drama because she's awful. Tracy tries to play pacifist. Ryan shows up, and he's, like, very clearly flirting with Tracy, but Felicia is for some reason just stuck on the idea that he likes Arielle. And then Ryan and his friends start a food fight, I think. Tracy, the food fight doesn't happen yet, but it's occurring in the background. Tracy is complaining because her mom gave them a really difficult piece in orchestra or something. It's so much of this book is just, like, set up for stuff that happens in other books. Just because from what I read, like, the 5th book in this series is about, like, the gang, getting invited to, like, a state orchestra convention or something. And so it's like, okay, I understand that you're setting up for, books down the line, but, like, it has no bearing on the current plot of this book. And so, like, a lot of this book is filler, even though the book is only, like, 100 and something pages long. Felicia wants to, like, make up with Amanda, but before she can do that, Ryan and his friends start a full-scale food fight, and so they all just have to, like, ditch because they don't want to get covered in food, except for some reason Felicia doesn't get out, and she ends up hiding behind the garbage cans, which is, like, so depressing. Felicia goes to orchestra class. Not everyone is in it. Felicia plays flute, Tracy plays clarinet, and Ryan plays violin. They go to orchestra, and things happen, I guess. I don't know, Tracy's in a bad mood, and Felicia's worried about that. She thinks that, like, Tracy's mad at her, and it's boring. Tracy, like, messes up at a part where she has the melody. She, like, squeaks, and same. Clarinet player struggles. Ryan laughs at her, and Tracy's, like, super upset, and Tracy's a good player, so Felicia assumes that she must be playing badly because she's mad about their fight or whatever, and it's... We love plot, guys. Felicia gets home from school, which, number one, her dad didn't, like, pick her up, so presumably she's able to walk home from school and get in on her own, which I'm guessing would mean she has a key. It seems kind of weird to trust a middle schooler with a key, but, like, I don't know. And then there's a note on the fridge door from her dad that basically says, we're all going to be having dinner at Penny's tonight. I left early because I needed to give her ingredients or something. I'll be here to pick you up at 5. And Felicia is disgusted. She plans on, like, lying to get out of it, pretending that, like, one of the animals is sick or something. And then when she shows up, her mind just, like, blanks and she doesn't do it. And so she goes to dinner with Penny. There's an awkward car ride in which Penny is trying to relate to Felicia, and Felicia is just shutting her down every second of it, and it would be awkward to experience, and it's awkward to read. They get to Penny's house, and Amanda is there, and Amanda's upset because she thought that she was going to be hanging out with Penny alone, but now Felicia and her dad are here, and Felicia and Amanda kind of have some, like, leftover beef from, or they, not, like, literal beef, I know we're talking about chili, but, like, she has, like, a metaphorical beef with Felicia still, and so they're both kind of upset at each other. Neither of them want to be here, and the adults are just like, doop-a-doop-a-doo, we don't notice any of this. There's a tour of Penny's house. Basically, it has a bunch of sculptures in it. It's boring. I'm not going to read it. Penny makes Felicia, like, a bracelet, and I want to read the description of this bracelet aloud because it's great. It was a bracelet. Most of it was made of small, round, greenish-blue beads. There are a few larger silvery beads here and there, and in the middle was a big, flat, white bead. First of all, she said the word bead so many times, and second of all, does she not think that 11-year-olds know what turquoise is? Anyway, it turns out that that bracelet was, like, similar to one that Penny had made Amanda, and Felicia and Amanda are both upset about this because Felicia doesn't want to be close to Penny, and Amanda doesn't want, like, her relationship with Penny being, like, encroached upon. Felicia tries to, like, over-exaggerate how much her dad likes dogs. She's like, oh yeah, he, like, sleeps in the bed with them, and he won't shower without one of them. One time we had, like, 20 dogs in the kitchen while we were eating dinner, when in reality, like, he had a dog in his bed when they were sick, and one time they had, like, 4 puppies in their kitchen because they were, like, sick and needed to be fed or, like, around the clock. And yeah. Oh, Felicia. Penny serves dinner, which is vegetarian chili, and it has eggplant in it, and Felicia hates eggplant. But then as a side, she made, like, corn muffins that have pumpkin in them, and Amanda hates pumpkin, so she managed to cook both of the girls' least favorite foods into her supper. Honestly, that's a mood. This paragraph right here sums up this entire book. Why couldn't I figure out how to make things right with Amanda? It shouldn't be that hard. Amanda is one of the most forgiving people I've ever met, not to mention one of the sweetest and most understanding. Side note, we have not seen that literally a single time in this entire book, but go off, I guess. So why was she so mad at me? Well, I guess the answer was obvious. It was all Penny's fault. Felicia's dad starts talking about, like, the work at the animal shelter, and Penny's, like, acting genuinely interested, but Felicia just assumes that she must be faking because I guess Felicia is a mind reader. Felicia and Amanda get a moment alone because the adults send them out to go get, like, chairs, and Felicia basically tries to, like, join forces with Amanda to get the adults to stop dating, and Amanda's just like, dude, like, they're adults. If they want to see each other, they're gonna see each other, and there's not really much we can do about it, because apparently Amanda thinks like a normal human while Felicia doesn't. They're like getting out like a chair so they can sit in the lawn together, and Amanda's like, oh, Penny, I just remembered I have like this English essay due tomorrow and I really need to go write it. And then Felicia's internal monologue is like, I'm in the same English class as Amanda. She's lying. But Penny doesn't question it, and Amanda basically just gets to go home. It's not established, like, if Amanda's house is near Penny's. I would assume so, because it says she just hurries off towards her house, so, like, I hope she's not, like, walking a mile or something. So, Felicia and her dad go home. There's more of her dad trying to be like, Penny's cool, isn't she? And Felicia being like, and then there's actually one scene in this book that I actually really like. Felicia goes upstairs and she's like stressed about this whole thing, so she decides to call her mom because she figures that her mom will be like on her side about the whole Penny thing. But her mom actually already knows like where Felicia was that night, and Felicia's like, wait, so you're not like upset about this? And the mom's basically like, no, because your father and I split up, and so I don't really care if he sees other people because he's not my husband anymore. And then that just like makes Felicia more stressed out, and I actually like that scene because it gives a contrast to like the wacky middle school girl logic of everything. And I don't know, I feel like that is like a realistic thing that people deal with. Like overall I like the concept of this book of like your parent starts dating someone and you're kind of like weirded out about like getting used to that. Like I kind of like that in the scene, but like the way it's executed is just in most parts not very good. But this one scene I actually really liked. So we have our obligatory part of the chapter where Felicia and Arielle complain about Penny, and then they run into Tracy and Ryan in the hallway, and Arielle finally explains to Felicia that Ryan is crushing on Tracy, not her. And then Felicia has, like, just her mind blown. At lunch, Felicia is, like, too awkward to actually sit with, Amanda and Tracy, because remember, she assumed that Tracy was on Amanda's side, and so she's assumed that Tracy doesn't like her either, but in actuality, Tracy's, like, slightly annoyed with Felicia, but not to the point where she wants to stop being your friend. So that whole subplot is just, like, a massive leap from Felicia's point. So Felicia goes and sits by herself at lunch, and then Arielle basically just comes over and is like, girl, what are you doing? Get up from there. In orchestra class, they all get broken up into, like, smaller groups so that they can work on their piece. And Felicia gets put in a group with Tracy, Ryan, and this one other kid who's irrelevant. And then they spend, like, the whole practice time, like, goofing off, and then, Miss McClintock, Tracy's mom, she comes over and she's like, how we doing here, group 4? And they're like, good. And then she's like, well, let's play. And then they're all just like, fuck. But Tracy does really badly, and Felicia can't figure out why. But she realizes it's because Tracy is sitting directly across from Ryan. So, like, while she's trying to play her sheet music, she can, like, see him in the corner of her eye. So then Felicia switches spots with Ryan to help her friend out, and then that kind of, like, mends up their friendship, and yeah. Tracy basically explains to Felicia that Amanda is mad because Felicia has spent all of her time relentlessly bashing Penny. And then this is what Felicia says. I thought about it. How would I feel if somebody was bad-mouthing one of my friends? I'd never really considered it that way before. I swear to God, if this girl's, like, emotional capacity was represented by, like, video game stats, she would have, like, a 0 in empathy. So the gang meets up the next day at lunch, and they basically force Felicia and Amanda to have an intervention, and they apologize for everything, mend their friendship, and then the author really unsubtly drops the plot of the next book, which is that Amanda is going to join the student government because they're trying to cut funding for arts programs, but the student government president is a cute boy, and Arielle likes him, but Amanda is going to be spending a bunch of time with him, and oh my god, guys, you gotta buy book 4. The 4 girls decide to make a plan to break up Louise and Penny. And you know what, let's just keep going because the last chapter is like the worst in the books, and I just want to like cover it, get it out of the way, because it's easier to explain as it goes, but dear God, is this a bad idea. So basically, the girls invite Penny over to the shelter, and they take her through like all the dog kennels to give her like severe anxiety, and they're like over exaggerating everything. Felicia's like, that one's named Killer and stuff like that. And so, oh, I forgot to mention about Ryan. So his dog, she has this quirk where her way of greeting people is like jumping up, like placing her paws on their chest and then just like licking the crap out of their face. And so they tell Ryan to come over with his dog unleashed. It's supposed to be like to test her jumping up on people training. And then the dog jumps up on Penny, and Penny literally has like an anxiety attack and starts like crying in the car, and yeah, and it's just so vindictive, and it would be okay if there was a payoff for it, but there isn't, because we have this much of the book left. Penny literally goes and like hides and cries in her car because she's distressed, and Ryan suddenly becomes the best character because he like hands the dog over to someone else, and then he runs over to Penny's car and he's like, I'm really sorry, Lois, it's a puppy, she didn't mean any harm, she's really big, I don't blame you for being startled, it's totally understandable. And like, why does Ryan, like, the dude who's just been hovering around as an idiot the entire book, why is he the only one with any lick of human empathy in this cast? Also, Felicia never really states in her internal commentary that she regrets doing this, which is a problem. Like, it's kind of implied that she regrets it because of, like, showing Ryan being sympathetic to her, but we never really get any internal commentary from Felicia giving any kind of explanation. When Felicia's dad gets home, he calls all of the girls' parents and basically says, hey, your daughter, like, kind of screwed up someone who has a mental illness. Do you think that, I think we can, like, ground them for a week. Do you think that's cool? And they do that. And then, but they're still allowed to see each other at school, so they go there, and then the girls decide to use their pet therapy thing to help people like Penny who are who are afraid of animals. And this, I want it to be known that this entire, like, plan they had is literally formulated in, like, 5 pages, which makes it very hard for me to have any kind of sympathy for these characters. Like, Felicia, like, the closest Felicia gets to internal reflection is she has a line somewhere where she talks about how, like, she made a snap judgment about Penny and how, like, if her friends had done that when they'd first met her, then she wouldn't be their friends, and she basically has that flash of, like, you have to get to know people. But, like, it's never explicitly stated that, you know, like, what's her name, Penny's fear of dogs is, like, an actual mental illness, and so that kind of rubs me the wrong way, because I feel like that could have been a good way to, like, educate both the characters and your target audience who are the same age as your characters and probably don't know that, like, phobias are a legit mental illness. That could have been, like, a really cool, like, education moment for your audience, but no, but, like, they definitely want to do better for Penny, and I appreciate that, but, like, considering that this all happens in literally 5 pages at the very end of the book, I It just feels like very rushed, which is not what you want your character development to feel like. And that's another thing, the book doesn't end on like them actually doing that and us getting to see the effects of them doing that. It just ends on them talking about it. And then the book literally ends. So honestly, the book was like fine until the ending, and the ending just rubbed me the wrong way because it was very rushed and I wasn't into it. Was not into it at all. So my review, if you are a 12-year-old girl, this book, it's fine. If you're anyone else, like, that's what this book deserves. Just, like, a dropping on the ground. Like, I didn't hate it. It doesn't deserve to be, like, set on fire. It just deserves to be, like, dropped on the floor a little bit. So that was my review of Troublemaker. Also, who was the troublemaker? Is it... I would say that it's Arielle, but this book... See, the book always presents Arielle's actions as being, like, fine. And that's another thing I don't like. Like, that's another complaint I have with this book. But who's the troublemaker? Is it Penny? Because Felicia blamed Penny for all of her problems? Is it Felicia herself? Like, I don't know, guys. Anyway, so I actually have a lot of books like this just sitting around where I, like, don't remember reading them or I never actually read them. So, like, maybe I can get around to reviewing more of them, but no promises. But in any case, Abby, I will see you on Monday.